Hi, this is Jacob Stitch Duran, and you're watching Breaking Beats with Marq Nash.
TRC Music.
Nash is mad now.
Thank y'all for coming out with here again. So we got a great show. We're back.
Yeah. What's poppin', y'all? What's happening? You back in the lab with your man Marq Nash. He is I am he. Another great episode of Breaking the Beats. Oh my God. Man, I got a crazy episode for you guys today. It's a pleasure and an honor to have this gentleman on the show. Man, what can I say about this guy that you might not know? I'm gonna let him say it for himself, but let me introduce this gentleman to you. This man is an actor, a producer, a military veteran. He's a husband, he's a father, he's a leader in his community. He broke the generational curse in his family. This man has done it all. If you've seen it in a ring, he probably was there. If you ate it, he probably picked it. From very humble beginnings, this man has done damn near everything you can think of in combat sports. But what you might not know is some people call him the cut god. Some call him Mr. One More Round. Today, we're going to call him Mr. Jacob Stitch Duran. Welcome to the show, sir.
My man, thank you. What an introduction. Can you do me a favor, though, first and foremost, is send me that intro, man. I got to use that somewhere because I've had a lot of intros, but that one was pretty badass, man. That kind of stays right on top. I think that's the best intro I've ever heard and very inspirational, man. So thank you very much. And, you know, I didn't know you had done your homework as deep as you did, just bringing up those issues. You know, one more round, and if you ate it, I picked it, and being a veteran, and you know, all the above. And you're right, worked a lot of great fights, man. So thanks for having me on board.
Thank you, Mr. Duran. So I'm starting off pretty good right now, then, huh?
You know, it's funny. Yeah, you just said Mr. Duran, right? Years ago, Robert Watts is a good friend of mine. He played football, and he said, "Yeah." We said, "You know, you made it to the top when they call you Mr. Duran, Mr. Duran." And here you are, calling me Mr. Duran.
So, would you prefer I call you Stitch, Mr. Duran?
Yeah. Stitch, man.
Stitch.
You know,
okay.
I'm just a normal guy, man. That's been blessed to do the things that I'm doing. But you know, we met. We were in Atlanta together, and you know my personality, and you know that's me. You know, people call me Stitch, and you talking about the fights that I worked last night. I worked with Jason Quigley, and after the fight, he said, "No, when I'm wrapping his hands, he goes, what's your real name?" And I said, real name.
Hey, where do we start? Can we start from your humble beginnings? Because a lot of people don't know this. You grew up very poor, to be frankly, if not being disrespectful. You guys picked cotton, you picked fruit. Talk to people about your early beginnings, being born to immigrant parents in California.
Yeah, poor. I mean, you know, poor economically. We didn't have what a lot of people had economically. But in health, because I was a farm worker, so we had all the fresh fruits and vegetables and all that, and you know, we had the family ties. So in that aspect, you know, there's a picture when my mom passed away that I have that I use as a motivation that she had tucked in her drawer, where I'm down on my knees in wintertime. I'm in the grape fields, me and my mom and my little brother. He's 12 years old, Ernie. I was 15, and there's a bus behind us. So that's the photo that she had. And I'm on my knees, and I'm wiring 200 sticks about this long of grape. We cut the grapes, we prune them, and we make them in steaks, and we put them in steaks. And I'm tying up the bundle, and that's how we get paid. My mom's tying up a bundle, and you know, we're both on our knees looking down, and my brother's like this with his hands up. And then there's a bus behind us. So that's a very inspirational picture for me because, you know, like I said, economically, yeah, we weren't, you know, on top of the list by any means, but for health and for family, and we didn't know sacrifice. I mean, look at my little brother, that right there with his arms like this, just kind of, and a smile, kind of said our lifestyle. So, but I'm glad I lived it.
Absolutely. A lot of people don't know this. Before the fight game, you had dreams of playing another sport. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, baseball. You know, growing up as a farm worker in the San Joaquin Valley, little town Planada, right from Little League, I played every year. And as I got older, in the 13, 14, 15 years old, in the summertime, all the farm workers would come from Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Mexico, just pick the crops, right? So we'd have Sunday pickup games. And, I played 4 years varsity baseball. And so I went through the whole motions, and I walked down to Merced College. That was the town that was closest to us. I grew up in a town like 1,500 people. And I didn't have a car, so I would ride to school with friends. And after school, they would go back home, and I'd stay and I'd practice, and I'd have to kind of hitchhike, go back. And, I was naive. I didn't know about grants and scholarships. So I went to the recruiter and joined the military, the Air Force. And 1972, I joined the Air Force, but I just kind of walked off and left that dream behind. And it was funny because years later, my locker mate, Rick Williams, ended up pitching for the Houston Astros, and I went to one of the Giant games against the Astros and went to the dugout, and he said, "Hey man, where'd you go?" And I said, "Well, I joined the military," but that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Absolutely. I'm a vet myself. I was in the Army. I was a combat medic.
Yeah, my man.
Yeah, that's why I was asking you about that adrenaline 1 to 1,000 when I first met you.
Yeah, bless you, man. Yeah, so you know.
And I was asking that. This is random, but you're good with these kind of things.
Barbershop talk, bro. Let's talk.
Right. Yo, Do you remember it was a fight with Ricky Hatton when he fought Floyd Mayweather? And I believe it was Harold Letterman who he just started a whole sidebar conversation about the cut, and UK cutmen don't use the same things as American cutmen, like adrenaline of 1 to 1,000 compared to I don't know if they use it or we use it here. But basically he said, well, why wouldn't he just equip himself with that, is what Jim Lempley asked Mr. Letterman. And he said, well, you have to be trained with it. You got to mix it. If it's expired, it doesn't work. I think people don't even know the small intricacies of being a cutman. They think, hey, get some Inswell, get some ice, some Vaseline, and you get guys messed up out there with guys who don't know the trade. Do you want to talk about the difference between cutmen in other countries use versus what we use here, and also these fake cutmen out here getting guys messed up?
Yeah, no, it's good questions, and let's get deep into it. And but yeah, I just got a message this morning from Cutman in Hamburg, Germany, and he asked me, what the rules and regulations were for the adrenaline chloride 1/1000. For your fans that don't know, the adrenaline is the swab. We'll dip it into the adrenaline, and that's what we'll put onto the cut. So in the mechanic version of it, it's a vessel constrictor, so it'll close up the vessels. And the only way you can get that is by prescription. That's the hard thing about it. But he asked me, the guy from Germany, what were the regulations of using epi in the United States, because in Germany, I think the doctors are the ones that could use it. So I told him, I said, it's pretty much open. I know the American Medical Association has complained that, how can guys like me that aren't medically qualified to get a prescription, because this comes by prescription. They say, you're the doctor, I get a prescription from you. I go to get my adrenaline, and it's designed for me, but then I use it on somebody else not being qualified. That's their big concern. And that was a complaint. I don't think it was a concern, but throughout the world, for the most part, epi is the primary one. Here we use Quick Aid, which is 100% natural. It's made out of a seaweed base, and it's like in a 2x2 cause, and you put it on the cut and it dehydrates the blood. The adrenaline, the other two that are used here are Avatine, which is also a coagulant. It's like my wife said it best, it's like cotton candy, but you put on the cut. And the thing with that is coagulants is once you punch, it takes that clot or that Avatine with it, and it takes the clot. And the same thing with thrombin, it's a coagulant. But adrenaline chloride, that for the most part works. And a lot of times and you're talking about the fake cutmen. Yeah, there's a lot of them out there that, let me add this, and I say it all the time, is you break it down, and you're talking, and we're going to break it down, is you look at all these major A-level sports, baseball, football, basketball, all these major sports. Combat sports are the only sports where we, as professional trainers, as professional cutmen, do not have to be certified to be called professional cutmen or professional trainers. All you need is to get a license in every state, put a towel over your shoulder, and you're a trainer, you're a cutman. So you never realized that, huh? But it's true.
100%.
It's true, and you know, I see so many guys that do the wrong things, and as I was learning when I lived in the Bay Area, when I got out of the military, I had a school of kickboxing in Fairfield, California, and I was also doing boxing. I lived in Oakland and Fairfield, but I went to a fight, Bone Crusher Smith against Marvis Frazier, never forget. And at that time, I had my school of kickboxing, and I was a trainer and everything that went with it, but I was learning to be a cut man. So I went to the fights, and the guy did a good job on working on a cut. And after the fight, I went and asked him. I said, "Hey, you know, I'm trying to learn to be a cut man. Can you tell me what you did?" He says, "Fuck you. I'm taking this to my grave, and you got to learn like me." And he walked away. That was that mentality of the mentality in boxing at that time, right? Everybody thought it was a secret.
How old were you at that time, Stitch, if you think?
Well, I mean, I'm 69. I've been here 26 years, probably 30 years ago. Probably 30.
Wow. You were crushed when he told you that.
Well, yeah, I was disappointed because, you know, I'm a martial artist by trade, you know, and our job is to teach. And I didn't know the mentality of boxing. Then it's before MMA, before any other sport. It was boxing only, and that was the mentality of these boxing guys that they were going to take it to their grave. You know, wrapping hands, I learned on my own just watching techniques of other guys sneaking, you know, in the dressing room, and they wouldn't teach you. And but going back to this guy, I've said this story in many, many interviews, but I've never thrown his name out, right? But I went back to Oakland with Andre Ward, and he forgot about it. But now that he saw my status has gone up a little bit, him and his son wanted to take a picture with me, right? So I put my hands around him and I said, "Yeah, let's take a picture." And I thought to myself, I won this battle because he just reinforced that I didn't want to be like this guy. And, you know, but there's a lot of fake people out there. And if you notice, in MMA, I set a formula that works. I wear gloves. I wear the wrist wrap where the swabs are here instead of your mouth or in your ears. And, you know, I put the Vaseline here, and I'll work on the fighters like an artist, and I'll get a small cloth and wet and clean them up. And so a lot of the guys in MMA have followed that technique because it works. And you'll see a lot of the young generation guys in boxing starting to do that. But you see the old guys that don't have gloves, they put the shit in their mouth. Those are the old school cut men. And, you know, it still happens in boxing. Not so much in MMA, you won't see that. In boxing.
Wow. I didn't know you were the originator of the wrist wrap.
Well, you know, let me tell you the history on that. The originator was Rudy Hernandez, and I was with him last night. So Rudy Hernandez we were talking about it because he was, Leon Taz was the first guy working the UFC. I came in second, Don House came in third, and then Rudy Hernandez came in fourth. So he had that created for himself. And Rudy knows I'm more of a marketing guy than he is, right? It made so much sense. And, you know, I had my stitch line, I had my own products, right? I said, "Rudy, this is a great idea. Do you mind if I make them and put my name on it?" He goes, "Nah, go ahead, go for it." And I said, you know, there's not a lot of money in it because there's not that many cutmen, number one, but it's more of doing the right thing, you know, and then put my name on it. So I was with him last night. I was just talking about it. But yeah, Rudy Hernandez, to set the record straight, is the one that created the wrist wrap, but I'm the one that promoted it going on. And everyone that you see wearing them is because I made it available to them. And and then also with Rudy Hernandez, let me throw you another little trivia here. He is the one, because before everybody used to have, I think, red tape. That's it. Both corners had red tape. You know, first it was duct tape. You know how they wrapped the glove?
Yep.
It was duct tape, right? And then someone decided, well, let's go red tape, whatever that was. But Rudy Hernandez brought in the blue tape to the UFC. And from there on, everybody started using red and blue. So that's a fact. I was there. I know.
What was the name of your kickboxing school?
ASK, the American School of Kickboxing. And I worked with a lot of super fighters, man. Like guys now in boxing would go to a gym to let's say MMA, go to Greg Jackson's to train, right? I had guys come to me to train. And but I had, you know, kids and adults, and, you know, and that's why that one more round, and, you know, that's all that. But yeah, it was very successful. Javier Mendez that trains Habib, and all that. I worked with him when he was a fighter, and a lot of these guys, kickboxers. I had a good crew of kickboxers.
You said something interesting. I heard you say. You said where you start isn't where you're gonna always end. And you talked about having a journey going from here, but you might end up doing. Hey, it went from being a young farmer worker with dreams of being a baseball player to not even arguably. You just Google the best cut man in boxing, your face pops up. How does that feel?
It's embarrassing, bro. I'm telling you. I'm not gonna lie. It's I still stay very humble because of where I come from. I never forget where I come from. And if you notice the fights, as you go back and you see the fights again tonight, when I'm in the corner on my collar, you'll see a word that says Planada. Well, Planada is my hometown, and that's like prime location for the cameras, because when I'm working on the fighters, the camera's behind me and they're locked into me working on them. So Planada is my little hometown of 1,500 people. Majority of them are Mexican farm workers, but I do it to inspire them. And like I say, it's not for the world to know who Planada is. It's for the people from Planada to know that I'm there to support them, and it really makes them feel real good. So yeah, that's I always get back to them, So, but yeah, it's quite humbling, man, just to be rewarded with these type of words, But I'm like you, man. I'm just a guy that's good at what I do.
Man, so like I said, you're the best damn cut man money can buy, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Like, where did the one more round thing come from?
All right. I just got a text right when we're talking. Mark Zucker, see, let me tell you how this started and how destiny always works for me. And everything to this point, everything that I've done, I swear I have never asked for one job. I'm just a proud Mexican. I just can't do that, right? I've had opportunities to do this, but I've never done it. But Mark Zucker was watching Balboa, and it turned out that that was when Rocky fought his last fight against Antonio Tarver, Mason the Lion Dixon. Well, I was a cut man for Antonio Tarver in the movie, right? So Mark Zucker let's fast forward back. When the UFC was hot with getting sponsors and all that, that Balboa, Mark Zucker was watching the movie Balboa, where Rocky said, I got to go one more round, that type of thing. And he thought, man, because he's a closing designer anyway. He used to BC Ethics and all that. And he thought, wow, that's the nice line for anything. And so he got a hold of Matt Hughes and sponsored him in the UFC. And Matt Hughes says, man, if you want to sponsor anybody that gives a fighter one more round, it's Stitch. So Mark got a hold of me, and we met here at Las Vegas, and from there it became history, man. People thought that company, One More Round, was my company. They make great outfits. They're the ones that helped Affliction, and they're the ones that helped all these other companies. He manufactures, to this point, the clothes for these high-end companies. So Mark was my sponsor, for the longest time. And then, the UFC started hitting everybody up for, you got to pay if you want to advertise these guys on our shows. You got to pay us this, and things got tough, and he pulled out. And, so I lost contact with him for many, many years, and I did this KSI fight with Logan Paul, and he sees me. He's there with his son. His son talked him into watching the fights, and he called me up, and he's the one that made my outfit for the Tyson Fury fight. When I met Tyson Fury, I said, I work with sponsors, and do you mind if I make an outfit like yours, same colors, and then put my sponsors? And man, he puts his hand on my shoulder, says, Stitch, you can do whatever you want. So Mark made those, and he made the ones that I used last night. So we're back in touch, man. And just by the grace of God. But, I always told him, I said, that one more round, and he brought that up, could go for anything in life. You right. Can't quit. You got to go one more round. If you're playing golf, go that one more round. If, whatever it is in life, just don't quit. Go that one more round. So, yeah, so I try to support it as much as possible because, that's kind of like my tagline.
Right. When you go to onemoreround.com, you're the first face I see. I thought it was your website as well.
Yeah, everybody does. But Mark's he just texted me because I sent him a picture. We haven't spoken. We were going to kick the new One More Round. We did start kicking it off when Tyson Fury fought, and then this pandemic kicked in, and with his employees and all that, just became extremely hard. So hopefully down the road, I like to make. I'm not good with T-shirts. a little too old for that, but I'm good with button-down shirts like this. But we could do something, nice designs in the back, one more round, and just real. So there's things I want to do this while, and he's good for the t-shirts. I'm good for the shirts.
So, I do shirts too, Mr. Duran. I actually make this. This is my brand. It says dreams require sleep, goals require effort.
There we go, my man. Yes, well, you understand.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. Do you ever feel anxiety or any pressure when you're dealing with a guy who he has a lot of scar tissue? He's been cut before and been cut bad. They brought you in because you're the best.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel any pressure or anxiety going into it? And or if you don't, talk to about those butterflies that you've heard about, but I'm sure you got them early on.
Yeah, no, at this point right now, I'm pretty confident in myself. And I like Jason Quigley last night, worked with him for the first time. And, after the fight, man, he gives me a hug in the hallway, thanks to, it's more than what you do mechanically, your inspirations, the positivity you bring and the knowledge you bring. He goes, it's very fulfilling for someone like me. Man, that made me feel good. But yeah, shoot, that's just kind of not the way I am.
Your process. You at this point you've been doing it long enough. How did you come up with the process that you have now? Because I heard you tell stories where you say, "Hey man, I bring enough for like 4 or 5 guys."
Yeah.
That's overachieving, right? 8 fighters worth of tape, 8 fighters worth of gauze.
Yeah, I always prepare for worst case scenario. I had guys that, hey man, don't worry, you're on holiday, you don't have to worry, he never gets cut. But shit, that get, but I always prepare because especially when it comes to wrapping hands, you'll get guys like last night. I wrapped 2 additional guys that I wasn't even supposed to wrap, but they asked me. And one guy's a 4-rounder, a young guy, and but both of them were 4-rounders. But I said, yeah, I'll do it, and I'll do it for one reason, and that's so that you guys could understand. Talking about the fighter, so you could understand the importance of having a good team, and the importance of having a proper wrap. So I always get back to these young guys, and so yeah, that's something that I continue doing, and even like Jason Quigley, wrapped his hands, and then I always make sure I get a hug from them, and after that, I said, no, we're not done yet. You got to give me a hug. Even Russians, and it's a trip to these Russians because they're very, very stoic, right? But I'll break them down, man. But they know I'm there to take care of them. That's the main thing, and I think that's the process that you ask. And yeah, early on, yeah, there's drills, but you're talking about these cutmen. When it happens, you see their hands are shaking, and
that part.
Or you're using a big towel, or they're just the techniques are totally wrong. They do it by watching other people, and that's why I want to teach all the time. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer, because I was telling the father of this young kid that the 4-rounder that I wrapped last night, I said, it's important for you guys to understand, how to take care of them. I said, you as a coach you could teach your son how to fight, but nobody teaches you how to take care of your son. And that's my commitment to this sport.
Hey, let me ask you this straight up. You was there last night in the corner. Did you think Haney was hurt by the shot in the 10th round, at the end of the 10th round?
Yeah, well, I got ice on him, so, the legs will tell you a lot. And yeah, he got buckled, no doubt about it, and just walking back, it took him about 3 steps to get coordinated again. So yeah, he got that little buzz shot.
Right. Yeah, man. I think the kid is phenomenal, and I think he's going to go really far. And I think some of the critics might be a little too hard on him. Like, it's a part of the game. Ward got dropped. Floyd was wobbled and buckled before versus Shane. I saw Floyd look hurt by Maidana at the end of a round like that with a counter right. So I just think it's a part of the game. You're gonna get hit. It's boxing. How far did you go with your combat skills? Did you compete or did you just train?
Yeah, it's funny because this is 1974. I'm in Thailand, right? And kickboxing was, when I got back to the States, I didn't even know what Muay Thai was, number one. But I studied there for that whole year. I studied Taekwondo for 3 months with the Koreans, and then they left and the Thais took over. But when I got back to the States, kickboxing was at its infancy, and I wasn't even looking at that. But I joined a couple karate tournaments, one in South Dakota where I was my last base, and then another one in Oakland, and everything that I did was with my feet, and I won them both. And I think I fought 3 guys in South Dakota, and the guy for the championship fight, I did it in 2 kicks. I kicked him with a stepping side kick, a Korean kick, right in the ribs, and kind of knocked his wind out, and they stopped it. Like the Karate Kid, I got to face away from him and get on my knees and face away from him and back, and then I gave him a roundhouse right in the same spot, and that was 2 shots, right? And the one guy said, "Hey man, you're kicking too hard," because I didn't know, point karate is points. Kickboxing, we did a full contact. So yeah, that was it. But I had an 8 to 5 job as corporate America with RJ Reynolds Tobacco Company. So yeah, fighting wasn't even in my mind, and working 8 to 5 with a company car and all that took my priority. So but I still stayed in the game. And when I was in Oakland, I helped put the boxing program together at King's Gym and all that. But yeah, I was designed to be a fighter. I've took my shots and I've given my shots, so I know what it feels like to get cracked, and I know what it feels like to crack somebody. So those I understand, and that's why I could read fighters as good, because I've been there.
Absolutely. And you was a trainer at one point as well, cut man, gym owner, kickboxing. You competed. You said this before. These guys are modern day gladiators, and we all need somebody to put on our armor. With that said, Deontay Wilder put on a lot of armor, and he later said it was because of his legs. He later said someone might have spiked his water. I've heard stories of egg weights possibly being in the gloves. In this fight, I believe he was on the other side. What's your take on that? I've heard it before, but I would like for you to say it on my platform.
Okay, yeah, of course. Yeah, and let me get back a little bit. Yeah, I was a trainer before. I was a good trainer. And I didn't come to Vegas. I've been here 26 years to be a trainer, because I thought all the great trainers in the world were here in the boxing capital of the world. But as I'd walk into the gym, I'd see these guys. I was real good at doing pads. And plus I had the knowledge of, because I worked with so many fighters as a coach. But I had an 8 to 5 job, and I couldn't give you 150%. They would literally hire me to do pads. I worked with Johnny Tapia, Raul Marcus, Mike McCallum, Franco Bota when he fought Tyson. Panama Lewis would call me to work with Sultan and Timur Abrugamov. So they would call me. I would sneak away from work and do pads. That's about as far as I could do. And but yeah, so being a trainer, I could definitely do that. What was the question on this one now? Because you asked about. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he had on too much armor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he had on a little too much armor. You think that's cap? You think he bullshitting, man?
Yeah, that's one of the things is when you lose, you find ways of putting it on something else, and a lot of times it's the coach, and this one had to be one of them, right? But yeah, putting the armor on. Number one, why would you walk in with 40 pounds of stuff, or why would you, if you were training with 40 pounds of stuff on you, 40 pounds in from the dressing room to the ring shouldn't make that much of a difference. But he got spanked, literally, and even the thing with the gloves. You know how many interviews I did about the gloves that Tyson pulled them out, and it's just bullshit, because when you wrap hands and you put the gloves in, they're pretty much locked in there. And then if you tape them like that red or blue tape, how are you going to pull your? It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard from people reacting to Deontay Wilder losing. But as I was walking out, I'm the one in the 5th round. I'm looking at the corner, and I'm telling Tyson and Sugar Hill, because I worked with Sugar Hill many times. I said, man, they're going to stop the fight. You could just then and I did an interview with the BBC as I was walking out, and I said, the type of shots that Deontay Wilder was taking were what I call deep penetrating shots that will take an effect later on in time. And later on in time is the dementia pugilistica. So Mark Breland is stopping the fight. Really did the best thing that he could have done for Deontay Wilder's career.
Why do you say that?
Because he was taking those deep penetrating fights, and he wasn't going to win the fight. If he would have continued fighting, and of course the heart of the warrior. And listen, I worked with what was his name? Anyway, he fought Deontay Wilder, and he knocked him out cold and sent him to the hospital. Right?
Brazil?
I'm trying to think who he was. No, he's from Belarus. I'll think of his name. Anyway, yeah. So, but he could hit hard. And the thing about it, he does have the heart of the warrior. So if he would have stayed in 2-3 more rounds, he would have got knocked out eventually, just because of the style of fighting that Tyson Fury was on point, and he had already read Deontay Wilder. So yeah, Mark Breland, saved him, from long term.
What do you say to when people say, hey, he might have spiked this water? He didn't get fired for he didn't get fired for spiking the water. He got fired for stopping the fight. But those stories were out there about him spiking the water. As a trainer, as a fighter, I know you always say, hey man, I treat these guys like they my son.
Yeah.
And so how do you feel when you hear somebody saying that in the corner?
I feel that they're probably an armchair quarterback and have never really been in the gym and don't understand that, what we do at this level, we're all top level professionals, and there's no need for anybody to be doing anything like that. That's crazy. That's Rocky stuff, and that's only Hollywood.
Cut me, Mick. Cut me.
Yeah. So speaking of cut me, so and I saw you sleep, and I looked at it and I thought maybe first thing that hit me was I thought it was Creed at first, right? So. But let me just, 3 years ago when we were filming Creed 2, I'm in the dressing room and every day for 6 weeks I'm wrapping Michael B. Jordan's hands, just like you and I, this close, right? And I'm telling Michael, I said, man, I'm just so proud of you and Tessa and Ryan Coogler and Steve Capel, what you guys have done as young brothers and sisters moving on up. And Michael looks at me and he says, Stitch, we went from being actors to writers, producers, and directors. And he says, I'm directing Creed 3 and you're with me as long as you want, that kind of character. But talking about Mick, I was talking to Alvis Grant and Elliot, his son, at the fights. And because he was in Creed also. And I said, the thing, I'd want to be in the third one only because I would be the Mick of Adonis. As Mick was to Rocky, I would be the lock-in guy to Adonis. So just more for the legacy of being part of that history. So it's crazy, huh? Oh, I lost your voice.
Hey, did he get dropped for real in that movie, Michael B. Jordan? I heard it was a viral clip going around of him training. Was that real or was that cap?
Yeah, he did.
Wow.
But sometimes, and sometimes you have to experience that. And maybe it's a good thing that he did, because it really put him in that fighter mentality. And about the 5th week of the first Creed, I'm wrapping his hands and I tell him as I stop and I said, look, Michael, I just want to let you know, man, I'm extremely proud of what you have done and the way you're representing our sport. You are top level. And I said, look, I'm gonna knight you as a fighter, brother, because you are now a fighter. And he made our sport proud.
Absolutely. You was in Here Comes the Boom as well, right?
Yeah. Can I tell you a story about Here Comes the Boom?
I would love it.
Okay, so I'm doing a UFC fight at the MGM, and people always want to take pictures, and this guy wants to take a picture, just of me. I said, no, let's take one together. He goes, no. He goes, I'm Frank Karachi. I'm the director, or he's directing Here Comes the Boom. He goes, Kevin James asked wants to know if you could be in the movie. I said, yeah, of course. So anyway, I get the script and there's no lines for me. And if you know Hollywood, if you have lines, you get residuals. Residuals are very rewarding, right? And I'm thinking, man, I got to think of something. I can't let that go without doing that. But when we were there, when it was time for us to do the scene, Kevin James pulls me aside. He says, Stitch, we got to have you say something. I said, all right. So I'm playing the dumb part. I said, well, look, man, here's what I tell the guys. Welcome to the UFC. Yeah, that's great. Let's do that. So they call me in and, Stitch, I can't believe you're working on me. I'm a big fan. What a week I'm having. And so I'm working on him. And then I say, boom, I slap him. I said, well, welcome to the UFC. And I walk away. But he didn't know I was going to slap him. So everybody started laughing, man. Everybody. So it was a one take. So I was one take Jake.
Yeah, that's my man.
That was funny, but I said, boom, well, welcome to the UFC, and then I walk off, right? Because I didn't want him to flinch,
Right, so that reaction was natural.
Yeah, it was natural, exactly. So it was one take.
How about that? How did y'all do that? That Ocean's 11, because they got you in there. How did they do that? Because you're in Ocean's 11 too, right?
Wow, yeah. What happened is long history to that too. In 91. Vitaly says 1992, but it's when the Soviet Union first broke. We took a team of professional boxers and kickboxers to Kiev to fight their fighters, and I had Mark Longo, a kickboxer. So that's when I saw the Klitschko's for the first time. They were young guys, but they were already big superstars. And when they started training at Top Rank, that's when I met them. And then I had already done a movie, so I came in just as an extra, but I was Vladimir's cutman. And it turns out that after that movie, I ended up being his cutman for, I think, 10, 12 years. But yeah, what an experience, man, just to be there to see, Andy Garcia, Matt Damon, and I mean, all these guys, George Clooney, all of them. Matt Damon comes up and introduces himself to us and he says, "Hi, I'm Matt Damon," and I said, "Wow, I know," So, Brad Pitt. I mean, and like I said, and then started working with Vladimir after that.
What was the worst cut? Matter of fact, I'm gonna go back a little bit. What was the first championship fight you worked on? Do you remember that?
Of course, the first world title fight in boxing was Tony the Tiger Lopez against Julio Cesar Chavez in Monterrey, Mexico. And what had happened there is Tony the Tiger, I always wrapped a good hand. And he lived in Sacramento. I live in Fairfield, which is 40 miles away. But they brought me in to do a test run on wrapping hands. And I wrapped his hands, and he got on the speed bag, and he's hitting it, and pop, the speed bag burst. And he said, "Man, I'll see you in Mexico." So that was my first world title fight.
What was the worst cut you've worked on, or the worst cut you've ever seen?
Well,
even if you didn't work on it.
Well, I think I've seen a lot of bad ones, man. But Raul Marcus, as a matter of fact, I just saw on Facebook today that he paid a tribute to Keith Mullen Sr. that passed away. And I just saw it 30 minutes ago. But Raul Marcus was my coming out fight here in Las Vegas. I've been here 26 years. He was the IBF, I think, middleweight champ. He fought Keith Mullins, and he ended up with 5 cuts, man. Here, something like 70 stitches altogether. I kept him in the game, and he ended up defending his world title, and that was it. But yeah, Raul Marcus. But yeah, broken bones, everything. I've seen them all, but worst cuts, I mean, just tons of them. So.
I was looking at this book. It was called From the Fields to the Garden: The Life of Stitch Duran.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that for the people who haven't read it?
Yeah, I told you, things just happen to me. I'm blessed, but during the time of the UFC when Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell, Tito, Matt Hughes, they were having Forrest Griffith, they were having books written on them, right? And a couple of those guys, the authors called me, and one guy went out to dinner with me, and they wanted to do my story, and nothing ever happened. Well, I'm the kind of guy, if you want to do it, let's do it. Zach Robinson, that is a teacher for the military kids in Germany, is also author, does sports by the numbers, very, very good at what he does. He contacted me out of the blue and said he was a big fan and asked if I'd be interested in writing a book, and I said, yeah, let's do it. It just happened by the grace of God that I was going to be in Germany 2 weeks later with Klitschko, and we met, and he played baseball. He's from Oklahoma. He played baseball. I played baseball. We shook hands and wrote the book, From the Fields to the Garden, and my sister-in-law, Dorothy's the one that came up with the name. But the Fields, growing up as a farm worker, the Garden going up to making a show at Madison Square Garden, and I've been there for both boxing and MMA. So the book's available at Amazon.com, and now it's being turned into a documentary. It's based on the book, From the Fields to the Garden, and like I say, just things happen to me. When I signed with Gerald Roxburgh is the producer, and Danny Acosta is the director, and Uriah Favors one of the producers. When I signed with them, just by luck, a week later, I get a call that Triple G is fighting, of all places, Madison Square Garden. So the footage we got of New York, the Garden, was tied up to a fight with Triple G. So I just spoke to them again. Now this pandemic is finishing up. We're going to start filming again, and we're going to get Andre Ward, Mike Tyson, trying to get Vladimir if he comes back into town. Cain Velasquez, Scott Coker, Anderson Silva, guys I've worked with. And then I think in July, we'll probably go back to Planada, my hometown, when the fruits are at its highest. They're being picked now, and all the farm workers are in, and the canals are full where we go swimming, and we'll be getting footage there, and hopefully by November we'll be done with the filming. But it's coming out real good, man.
When you look back at your life, what was that break moment where you was like, you know what, I'm gonna focus more on this instead of that? Because you was just doing the cut man stuff for your fighters, right? And then it's like, you know what? Go ahead. I'm sorry. What was the breaking moment, though? Go ahead.
Good question. And I've never been asked that one before. It kind of threw me off guard. But when did I make the decision? Like I say, when I had my school of kickboxing, I was a trainer. So I promoted fights. I was a trainer, manager. So I did all the above. But working cuts just kind of floated to the top. And being with R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, I know they were starting to downsize. And I put in for a transfer to Las Vegas, right? And I waited probably about a year, and I knew that things were getting, they were downsizing. And I get a call that there's an opening in Las Vegas, and I got to be there in a week, and I couldn't do a week. I negotiated 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I transferred my school to one of my students. I sold my house, put my family in a U-Haul, and we drove 9 hours to Las Vegas. And then I took like a $25,000 a year cut and pay. But I came with the desires and the dreams to be a cut man. I was in kickboxing, I was already at the A level experience-wise. And like I say, when I got to Las Vegas, my coming out fight was Raul Marquez, and people said, wow. If you remember, Chuck Bodak was the old cut man that worked with De La Hoya, Julio Cesar Chavez, Matamero Paez. He put the tape on his head and had the pictures of the fighters, and he looked like Colonel Sanders. He's the first guy to welcome me into the boxing industry in Las Vegas. He came up to me and said I did a great job and what have you not. So yeah, so that's when I decided to, my concentration would be solely on being this, only because I had a job. If I didn't have a job, I probably would have gotten into training. But Cornelius Boza Edwards, one of the great champs out of the United States or UK, that now is out of the Mayweather gym. I met him years and years and years ago before I even moved there. In fact, I was still in Oakland. I went to England for boxing with Art Sawano from Uganda, and Boza's Ugandan, and also they were friends. And I told him I wanted to move to Las Vegas, and I tell young people this all the time, and I'll tell you also because you want to continue your career. He said you need 3 things: you need a place to stay, a car, and a job. And those 3 things I've always had. Now, by the grace of God, I could do this full time.
You did pad work for Mike Tyson at one point, right?
Yeah.
You want to talk about that? People love a good Tyson story.
Yeah, that was my biggest dream. I'm pretty good at pads, right? Like I said, they used to hire me, and Mike and the guys I would work with, Livingstone, Bramble, and all these, we all trained at the same gym. So I knew Mike, and I would say, dang, just one day I want to do pads with Mike. Just one day, just to say I did it. Well, if you remember Panama Lewis, he called me because I was doing pads for Sultan Ibrahimov and his cousin Timur, and he called me and said, hey, man, can you do pads for Mike? And he was in between trainers. And yeah, of course. So I did a couple of weeks of pads with him. And this one guy had taken a picture. I couldn't believe it. I just saw him in the gym the other day, piece of garbage. He took a picture of us because he was like a independent photographer. And he came back the next day with a picture. He wanted to charge me $50. And I told him, no, I'm not going to pay $50. But, nonetheless, I ended up doing pads with Mike. And I also did a documentary years and years ago called Boxer's Nightmare. And I interviewed Mike a week before he got his tattoos. And I told this story at the fight yesterday to Jason Quigley. I asked Mike, I said, every fighter has that one little thing that nobody in the world has to be that one little fighter. He goes, what is that one little thing? I asked him. And very simply, he says, take the pain. You have to take the pain. And as I broke it down, it was like one more round. As I broke it down, he's right, because you go through pain in training, you go through pain in the fights, you go through pain in your personal life, you go through pain in your financial situations. It's tough being a fighter, man. Who's
pound for pound right now to you?
I don't know. I don't care. Yeah. Brother,
straight up.
I don't care. And somebody asked me what Haney and Linares was weighing in. I said, I don't know. To me, like I tell guys now, and it's the truth. I've done so many world title fights, in all combat sports, that it's not even about the fights no more. It's more about the characters that I work with, the fighters, the camps, and all that. That's what gets me off right there more than the title fights. To me, a round is a round, a fighter's a fighter, and a hand's a hand, and a cut's a cut. But everything that I do is not so much for the challenge of having a world title fight under my belt. It's more of taking care of him like he's my son.
Right, because you can turn down business at this point. You're highly demanded worldwide, so you kind of got to like the guy if you want to work with him, right?
Yeah, 100%. That's number one. Listen, if you were an ass, I'd say, man, I'm going to a Mexican wedding, bro. Sorry. I'm already booked, man. So yeah, but I always try to give back, and I've been blessed.
You had a little beef with UFC boss Dana White at one point.
I did.
What happened there?
Well, I spoke up for the rights of people. A good question. And, growing up as a farm worker, number one, my parents were in the movement with Cesar Chavez, which is our Martin Luther King, when they made the walk from Delano, California to the state capitol to strike, to protest. My parents, we got involved. We walked our little distance with them. And, the people that were on the walk, there's like 100 of them. They, the little town of Granada put them up, and they fed them and all that. And, my parents were always against that, were always with the movement, trying to make things right. And things got better for farm workers. Before we had nothing, we had no restrooms out there. My mom, my sisters would have to go, rows down or, behind trees and go to the restroom. And the water, we all drank out of one tin can, and it was a tin cup, and we all drank out of the same. And, pesticides, spraying in one field. Also, all those things that they fought for. So with the UFC, Dana brought me in. So I got to give him credit for bringing me in and really kind of changing my life. But the reason that it was good to work with him was that we could have sponsors. And, fighters were making $50,000, $100,000 a fight, and we were all happy making sponsor money. I was making good money with sponsors. And so they went into the Reebok program, where they took sponsors away from everybody, and they had to be Reebok exclusive. And the whole fight industry were not happy with what was going on and what have you not. And so they called the cutmen in together. They flew us all in, and they told us that we couldn't have any sponsors no more. And, that was it. And so I always represented all the cutmen. I've always had those leader qualities. And so I tried to negotiate at least additional money. And they said there's no money in the kitty. So, I needed the UFC to make my money on the sponsors. They're basically what they pay the cutmen less than they do the ring girls. To show you how it was. So when they took those away, everybody was hating it. So I get a call from John Nash, which is from Bloody Elbow. And I've never met him, but he says, would you be interested in doing an interview of how the Reebok deal affected the cutmen? So I go back to my roots. My parents, we've all been fighting for fair equity things. So I said, well, and then I represented all the cutmen for the most part. When I'd get a sponsor, I would seal my deal, and then I would negotiate for you and for Rudy, and try to get them something also, and they would wear us out. So I always try to help them out, and they took them out. And so I did the interview, and it was very politically correct, but it went viral, and to the point where I'm getting calls from all over the world, fighters and trainers and promoters and everywhere. And I mean, it was insane how things were going. I'm doing interview after interview. And so I'm at Costco with my wife, and I get a call from one of my friends in the UFC, and he asked if I was available. And I knew what it was going to be. It was going to be about everything that was going on based on that article. And I said, well, I'll be home in about an hour. And they called me, man. And Mark and Jesse, my friends, and their voices are cracking. And Mark is, and he's saying the only thing he said is because of the interview you did about Reebok, the UFC is not going to use you no more. And I said, all right, I didn't want to blast them. So I told Mark, I said, all right, but you do me a favor. You tell Dana, I said, he ain't got no balls, that he should have called me since he's the one that brought me in. So I hung up, and I'm getting all these messages, bro. I'm telling you, So the first one I read is from a guy I know now. I didn't know who he is, don't know who he is now, but it's David Estrada. And I wrote back to him that he was supporting me. They all support me. And I said, look, I want you to be the first to know. UFC just let me go for speaking out about the Reebok deal. Now I got to find a new job. And that went viral, bro. I did 57 interviews in a week. I had camera crews coming to my house. You would have thought I was OJ, you know? I'm serious, man. It became so insane. The positivity was so strong. I had Bad Boy Robin Hoffner from Bad Boy offer to make shirts. Uriah Favorite with his company to make T-shirts at that time. Those they were hot, and all the proceeds would come to me. And this one guy, Robbie LeBlanc, that does motivational speeches, things on every week, every Monday here. I tuned into his, and he said, you know, today's motivation speech is about a friend of mine, Jacob Stitch Duran, that spoke up for so and so and so. Man, I started listening to it. I started crying. There was so much energy that was coming my way. And my wife comes into the room and she looks at me and I'm crying and she wants to know what's happening. And she sees what the video that Robbie LeBlanc made, and she starts crying. You know, so that much. And man, I had job offers from all over the world, and just so. And matter of fact, last night, everywhere I go, people stop me and bring that up. It's been 6-7 years. I just got a message today from this cut man out of Mexico that says, you know, you stood up for everybody. I did a couple months ago. I did a Top Rank show, and Luis, one of the Brazilian trainers that trains all the top MMA fighters, was working with a boxer, and he comes up to me during lunch. He goes, Steve, we, the coaches, the fighters, we respect you so much because you spoke up when we couldn't. And, you know, this has been years, bro. Wesley Snipes, when I did my first Creed, went to the premiere, and they had the after the movie party. He comes up to me, shakes my hand, and said, hey, man, UFC did you wrong. You know, so they did. You know, I spoke up for everybody. And, you know, and for that, it cost me the job, but it gave me the best thing ever happened to me, you know. And so.
Did you guys ever, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I saw my friend Mark last night at the fights, and he gave me a hug, you know. So it was, as it was. But also, so with that article, the dust starts settling, right? After, you know, they fired after they let me go. A couple weeks later, the UFC has their first big show on Fox, Major Fox, right? So Karen, it was this big that Karen Bryant's interviewing Dana and says, will Stitch ever be back? Nah, you know, Stitch will never be back. And if you were friends, you should have called me.
I saw that interview. He said, he's not my friend. We never were friends, never will be friends. Yeah, I remember that.
Stitch and I were never friends. And that blew up in his face, you know. And so people ask me, hey, man, have you seen him? I said, no, you know. Well, what would you do if you did see him? I said, man, I'd shake his hand and thank him for letting me go. It's the best thing ever happened to me. So I've been blessed, man. So speak up for what's right.
So you've never been back. You never worked a UFC event since then. You did go on to Bellator though, right?
I got all kinds of offers. I went to Ryzen, did a show in Ryzen. I did Bellator, Scott Coker, because I knew Scott Coker when I had my school of kickboxing. My fighters would fight under his promotion. Jose, and that's how I ended up working with Javier Mendez, that, you know, is the top trainer of Cain Velasquez and Habib and all that. That's how I knew him, but he's the one that brought me in. And then I got an offer to do some fights here with a new organization, FFC, at the Rio. So, you know, Scott blessed me and sent me on my way and says, you know, you're always welcome back. And, you know, tried a new adventure. With that adventure, worked for a while. But now just, you know, I'm doing this, and I just got a call. I guess I could let you know that now they want me to talk about movies, right? They contacted me and they want me to be a consultant producer in an MMA movie that's going to take me to Santa Fe, New Mexico for about 3 or 4 months to film over there. Originally, we were going to go to Atlanta, but Atlanta's not available until August.
Right.
So I'm going to be in Santa Fe being a consultant producer, and then Elvis Grant, you know, I mean, I'm waiting for Creed 3. So, yeah, you know, UFC me now.
God is amazing, man. You can't keep a good one down.
Hey,
God don't make no mistakes.
It just happens, man. It just, you know, you were talking about when did you decide to take this route and all that. I go with the flow. you know, and you know, I've been, God, I just signed with a company. In fact, one of the commentators for the Zone hooked me up, and I was talking to him last night. It's a major video game where they're signing major boxers into this game, and it's going in all platforms and all that. So it's thrills could be real high end. So they're bringing me in as a cut man, and when they send me the contract, being that I worked with RJ Reynolds, corporate America for 23 years, and you know, I've been my own agent manager, so to speak.
Right.
Send me the contract, I kind of had to redefine a lot of it because it just didn't make sense. And I was talking to him last night, and he says, "Man, thanks for helping us with the contract." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I couldn't present it to Andre Ward. I'd be embarrassed, you know." And so I made them. You know, they want you know, some exclusive and all that. Well, if you want exclusive, it's going to cost you a guaranteed cost. You know, and what happens to me when I die? Where does that money go to? It has to go to my wife. You know, just simple things that I've learned through the business that you're entitled to. And, you know, so I helped them out, and they thanked me for helping them out with the contract. And brother, I only got a high school diploma.
And look, man, but man, you making that thing work.
Yeah.
You doing what it do. Man, I know you are busy, man, and I don't want to take too much more of your time. I had about 2 more questions.
That's
As a former fighter yourself, right? And keep in mind, you said, "Hey, man, I treat these guys like they're my sons. I love them, right? I gotta like you to even work with you, right?" Now, do you ever feel frustrated or silenced with what you're seeing going on? Because you've been on the end of losses. You've been on the end, like, hey, no matter what I do with this cut, he's not gonna win this fight.
Yeah.
Because you can see it. You know the guy. Yeah. You ever feel frustrated, like, because they didn't hire you to give them things and, you know, hey man, you need to work the jab or work the body more, right, double and triple. No, man, you got to sit there and just be like, almost like a ghost. Like I'm a producer and an engineer. They used to tell me when I was an intern, you're supposed to be the ghost running the machine. Let somebody else, the producer who's in the room, do that. You're the guy working the buttons. You mix and you hit record. You can't tell him do another take because you didn't like his voice. You tell him do another take if it's glitching. Sorry, I'm rambling. But do you ever feel that frustration? Like, damn, man, he could have did this or could have did that. You got anything to say about that?
Yeah, you know, I don't say nothing. That's not my job. But when I do, it's always the truth. And a good example is Vladimir Klitschko, right? And he knows that if I say something, like one time there was something happened during the fight. I can't remember who, but Emmanuel Stewart gets all shook and he goes into the middle of the ring and he's arguing with a referee. And I'm cleaning up Vladimir. I said, "Man, don't worry about it, man. You're okay." You know, and he brought that up after the fight. You know, thank you. But I hadn't seen Vladimir when he fought Anthony Joshua. Show you the kind of, you know, what I bring to the table and the confidence I give him is I didn't see him to the weigh-ins, but we go over the system and then I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, "Look, Vladimir, don't worry about nothing tomorrow. I'm going to take care of you like you're my son." And I left because I understand fighters the night before a fight can't sleep. They're jittery and all that. But here I am before Michael Buffer does the announcements. I'm putting the final Vaseline on Vladimir and we're this far apart. And he says, "You could call me son." So it gave me chills, bro, because just like now, you know, because I knew that I had gotten into his head that night before, right? So, but if I'll tell a coach, you know, I'll give him my personal opinion. Number one, for me, the fighter is safety first. And I've made those decisions. Andre Terrell, when he fought Eskidegi, you know, Virgil Hunter was working the fights. His grandfather's working the fights. I didn't know how sick Virgil was at that time. I think he ended up spending like 2 months in the hospital after that. So he's in a tough fight. This is a rematch with Eskidegi. And he's taking those Deontay Wilder long-term shots. And the doctors are sitting by me and I hear him talking about, you know, him getting hit. So I get in there and I started working on him and I said, "Andre, the doctors are thinking of stopping the fight. It is like the 8th round, I think. Do you want to continue?" And he goes, "Just a small no." And I said, done. And nobody knew what was going on. You know, referee done. Versus, no, one more round. I said, no. Once the fighter says no, then you can't let him go back out there because he's done. Mentally, he's done. Right? And so people didn't understand. But the next day, him and his wife called me and they said, "Man, thank you. Thank you. And his uncle called me from Detroit. Thank you, because I just didn't have it in me. But those were the type of shots that were going to give him some long-term damage. So, yeah, when I do say something, I don't say it just to hype you up or anything like that. I keep quiet until I know my experience comes in.
Okay. I had a very loyal subscriber to the show. He wanted to ask you a question. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
I'm gonna beam him in real quick, and he's super excited to meet you as well. His name is Mike Lewis. That guy Eclipse, big fan of combat sports, and he's a military brat. Good guy all around. Mike, that guy Eclipse. I got you on live right here with Mr. Jacob Stitch Duran. You got the floor, sir.
Hey, first of all, it's an honor to be speaking to you, Mr. Duran. It's been a pleasure. You're a legend in the game. I ain't got to tell you that. Respectfully, I disagree but agree with what your assessment of the Wilder fight, and that was my question for you. So it was kind of crazy you brought it up in that context. That was so amazing how you did that there without knowing. I was even going to ask you this question. I wanted somebody with your experience in combat, in the combat sports arena, to explain to our viewers the difference between, say, those quick lacerating style strikes and what you just said, a deep penetrating blow, something that'll cause, say, a hematoma or something that's causing the same effects as concussion within the internal organs, and that is why I said I disagree, but I agree with what you said about Deontay Wilder. I didn't like the outcome of that fight, but
what's your question?
Looking at the replay, I did see different blows to the body, like you're talking about, that were like deep penetrating, where it didn't seem like it hurt him. But if you're a fighter, you know that probably shook something up on the inside. And so my question basically was, could you please expound for the viewers about the difference of, say, a quick lacerating style strike and a deep penetrating blow?
Good question.
Yeah. Of course, and I've seen it in both sports. In MMA, Chuck Liddell is that guy that every time he's going to hit you, how many times you've been, if you're a kickboxer, if you get kicked in the thigh, it's going to penetrate into the bone, and you're going to feel that for 2-3 weeks, right? I know I've been there many times, but the shots, not so much the body, the body you're gonna take it, but the shots that he was taking to his head are the kind that jarred the inside of your brain. And those are the ones that I consider damaging, because they're not sliding off, they're going straight, and they're going fast. So that's the one that will do this to you. And through long-term damage, you're going to see the brain in there is going to be, that's that jiggle effect that you don't want to happen to you. So that's what I'm saying, those long-term shots. It might not happen now, but down the road, when you do those, and then in your next fight you take more of them, it's just going to add to it, and it's just going to, that's what I'm talking about, long-term shots.
Mike, you got one more?
Yes. Could you? I know there probably were 1,000 situations in your experience, but can you describe a time or a fight? I would love if you could give a specific name, but a time or a fight where you really just felt like you wanted to look at the corner and be like, "What do you expect me to do?" Like this. I know the Martinez fight was bad. I remember that one with the 5 or 6 lacerations across his face. But were there any other fights, UFC or boxing, where it was like, wow, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah, I could go to Jay Haran. I call it the bloodiest fight I ever worked, right? Jay Haran fought Jonathan Goulet. This was, I think, WEC, maybe UFC, same organization. But he took a knee right here. And you know that big vein we have that when you laugh? Well, that vein, the cut was only about this big, but it severed it. And he bled like a pig, bro. And they both had blood from the top of their head to the bottom of their feet. Literally, so much blood, I got nauseated. But I'm working on the cut, and the doctor comes in. Well, Stitch, what do you think? Yeah, no, I got it. And I knew I was in trouble when normally I'll use the adrenaline, right? The adrenaline is a medication to close up the blood vessels, but I'll mix adrenaline with Vaseline, and I'll put that as the final topical. Keep in mind, the cut's only about this big, but it severed that vein, right? So I put the swab on it, boom, right at the end, I cover it perfect, and that shit just goes right through the Vaseline, and I knew I was in trouble. and so yeah, there's some fights, and Jay Haran is so proud of that event. That ring is in Randy Couture's gym right now, but it was the bloodiest fight. At that point, I said, man, I did my best, and I just couldn't do nothing with it.
Wow, that is amazing. That's gold right there. Oh, wow. Man, it is an honor speaking to you. Hey, Marq Nash, I love you, man. Everybody subscribe to Marq Nash. Hit the like button, man. Hey, Stitch, it's an honor. Keep doing your thing. One last question before I leave.
Sure.
Spence Pacquiao, who you got?
I don't pick them, bro. I don't pick them. To me, we're just like armchair quarterbacks. Our word don't mean nothing till the fight happens. But if you ask me the probability of cuts, that's the way I examine fights. And probability of cuts is slim.
How about that?
Yeah. So we'll
thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike, for pulling up. Mike, you can hang out backstage. I'll holler at you when this is over. Or I'll hit you up later. Thanks again for your support, brother. Mr. Duran, yes, thank you so much for your time. This has been great for you to take so much time out your day after such a long night last night. Man, this is a blessing and an honor. You definitely add credibility to the channel and to the show. They're going to start taking me serious out here. I had David Benavides Jr. last week, and I got Stitch Duran this week. I'm moving up, man.
George Jefferson.
Yes. Man, this is great. Thank you so much for your time. You survived it, man. You made it through. Round of applause for you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you again for helping me out with this, man. You've really made my dream come true today, man.
Let's do it again. Let's do a lot more stories.
Hey, and when you got something else to promote or you got anything going on, I'll follow you on IG. If you post it, I'm a beam in and I'm gonna say, hey man, pull up. Let's do a quick chat. We don't have to be an hour long, but just do a quick chat or tell people what you got promoting. Like I said, they're gonna love you. If this was a live show, I normally go live for 2 hours, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but they would have went crazy. But I knew I wanted to chop it up. I knew everybody was gonna want to get on the panel and ask you questions. So one day, if you got time, we'll actually do it live and let everybody in the chat and join the panel, like how Mike pulled up. Because they love you out here. They always say it, man, you're the best in the world at what you do, man.
Well, let's do it right away, man, before, the iron gets cold.
Hey, absolutely. So I'll drop this one, see how people respond, and I'll hit you back whenever you're ready. I'll hit you back in a couple weeks, I guess.
All right, my man. Be blessed.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
All right. Goodbye.
All right.
TRC Music. Nash is mad now.
Thank y'all for coming out. We're here again. So we got a great show. We're back.
Well, Mr. Duran, let me ask you something. I just noticed this.
Yes,
Are you on a phone or a laptop? You on
Yeah.
a phone? Can you turn your phone sideways? Will it sort of fill up the screen?
Yeah, let me know.
It should rotate. Does your camera rotate?
Nah.
No. Don't worry about it.
I don't
Probably,
know. I told you, but
yeah, it's probably a button you have to click on it to make it automatically rotate. Don't worry about it.
where do you click on? I mean, if you can show me, I'll do it.
You on an iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
You should be able to scroll down at the top. You know where you can switch your options and all of that, your Wi-Fi and all that off and on.
Oh, yeah.
You should have an automatic rotate button up there. But
did I lose you?
oh yeah, you lost me.
All right. Let's stick with what I have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's all black now. I can't even see nothing now.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I didn't. Hold on. Man, I forgot what I did, how I did it. Hold on.
See, I messed it up, man.
Yeah.